Hello, everybody. Um, I'm Klaus Bertelsen. I'm together with Johan Bortvedt today. And Johan is going to explain to me about one of the great mysteries of life, which is version and control software. I think that I've been working with various different systems, but they all seem to have their own peculiarities. And have to confess you, I don't always feel comfortable and safe with these systems. Um, so I usually keep a backup locally so that I'm sure that if the version control software is not actually screwing my source code up. Johan, but you know a lot about these things, so maybe you can enlighten us about it.
If you feel more secure making a copy of the source code and put it in on a separate folder, why do you want a versioning system at all?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I mean, if you're working alone on a software project, then the question is, should you use a version controlled system anyhow?
Yeah, I believe so. It's a very good practice to actually have some kind of version control. And today Git is the most popular one with a couple of reasons. When I started out coding, it was like SVN or some other tools. Basically, what you have in a version control system is the possibility to look at exactly where in the code you did some changes. So I see the main advantage is if you have one release and then you make a new release and you made some changes and all of a sudden your code doesn't work, you can go back into the version control system and see exactly which lines you changed in order to fix them or restore them to their old values. So that has been very helpful for me a couple of times.
There's also an aspect of backup in this version control.
Yes, of course.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that makes me comfortable anyhow with having stored in, for instance, like in Git, is that if somehow I lose my computer,
yes,
I'm not on. I don't have any problems in restoring the system.
that is a valid point. But as you said, today we have backup systems that back up the disk we're working on, so you always have an up-to-date copy of every single file on your computer. So the backup thing is not really that critical, but of course it's nice to have a clean backup of every change you have in your system in the cloud, so you don't have to risk it if your computer crashes or something. If you look back at SVN, that's kind of one thread where you can enter a new change, and if we are two developers on a project, you make some changes and then you commit them, and then I make some changes and I commit them, and all of a sudden we have a conflict and we need to resolve that conflict, and everything happens in one thread. So if you have multiple developers, you can have multiple conflicts at once, and it all gets into a mess. And I think that was the main reason for developers to move over to Git versioning, because in Git you can have multiple branches and then merge those branches when you are done with the upgrades. And you can version control your local code, you can version control your own repository, and you can have a master repository where everything lies.
Really pressing on a soft spot here, because in the old days, I mean, the very old days, is that when you had checked out a file, for yourself, and you began to make some modifications to it. It also meant that it was locked, so that others couldn't work on the same file at the same time. And that was very nice and simple, and there was never any conflict. And I mean, it was easy to work with. Now the situation is when you are two people or more, it's for some idiotic reason insists on making modification to the same file at the same time. Or what's also, I mean, let's just face it, one situation that could often happen that arises that one developer makes some modifications to a file, um, but he forgets to update the repository. So now he has some modifications that are 1 month old.
Yeah.
And then he need to make other modifications to the file, to the program file arises, and another programmer goes in and begin, and then then you have all the problems.
And you can't
And
really trace them either.
no, and and that is exactly the situation where I begin to feel a little bit flaky, about what's going on now. Will it totally screw up what I have, or is there any chance of this ending well?
Yeah. And from what I've learned about using Git, you actually have this master thread where the main convention is that you have your production ready code in the master thread. So when you want to make changes, you move over to the development thread, or you have, if you have multiple versions, you can have different branches for each version you're working on. And we work with the tickets often. So when you create a new ticket, for instance, if it's not a very easy quick fix that you just can add to the development branch, you create a feature branch where you develop this new feature, and you can test it, and then you merge that back into the development branch. And that way, if you have any quick fixes you need to make to the master branch in production, then you can branch out and make a quick fix there that you move back into the master branch without touching the development, and then you can merge that fix into the development as well. And when you are ready in your development environment to put it into production, you merge the development thread into the master, or what you really do is you move the master up to the level where your development thread is, and tag that with a version number. And then you continue the process. You move out and develop in your development thread for the next version of your software.
So in principle, what I think I'm hearing that you're saying here is that that you could actually work with two different problems or two different fixes in the same file, but actually in two versions.
Yes, you can.
So for instance, what happened is that you got this thing, it will take you a couple of days to finish it, and while you're working on it, you suddenly realize that there is another problem that needs to be fixed now. Yeah. So you stop what you're doing, you're working with, and then you sort of start all over with a fresh copy of the source file, make the changes in another branch, deploy that, and then go back to whatever you're doing. And then in the end, you would merge them together.
Yes. You can easily do that in Git, because you can just click on a position in the Git tree and get that exact version that was available at that point in that branch.
Right. There's some nifty possibilities here. I can see that. So we'll have to work with it.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
will adjust our procedures, and then maybe we make a new video later on where we talk more about our experiences using Git this way.
Yeah.
And see if we can perhaps have some more tips and tricks up our sleeves.
I suggest that we start with some small files.
Yeah.
Not very important program files.
Play around a bit with it. Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think that's all for this video. Hope you liked it, and don't forget to click the like button and subscribe, because we're going to make a slew of these videos on different topics on software development in the future. So hope to see you next time.
Bye-bye.